A Hollywood heartthrob stabbed to death, just feet from his front door. No one stole a thing. No clear motive, and for nearly 50 years the truth stayed buried, until now. The twist? His killer may have been hired, and the people behind it were never caught. This isn't just a murder, it's a cover-up, and the truth is worse than anyone imagined. Sal Mineo had it all, the looks, the talent, the fame, and he lost it faster than anyone expected. But what really destroyed his career? A secret Hollywood didn't want exposed. At just 16 years old, Sal was already being called the next James Dean. He wasn't just acting, he was tearing open emotional wounds on screen. His performance in Rebel Without a Cause didn't just earn him an Oscar nomination, it shattered the image of the typical 1950s man. He played John Plato Crawford, a confused, lonely teenager many now believe was one of the first closeted gay characters in American cinema, hidden in plain sight. Because back then, being openly queer in Hollywood was like signing your own career death certificate. And Sal? He didn't just play the part, he lived it. But the camera stopped rolling, and that's when reality hit. Hollywood cheered for him on the surface, but behind the scenes, powerful people were already pulling away. Why? Because Sal wasn't playing by their rules. He didn't fit their version of the leading man. He didn't fake relationships for press headlines. He didn't hide who he was, not in private, and eventually not in public either. And that made him dangerous, because Hollywood doesn't just blacklist actors, they erase them. If this sounds wild already, just wait, it gets darker. Hit that subscribe so you don't miss what they tried to hide for 49 years. While other actors were playing it safe and clinging to whatever fame they had left, Sal did the exact opposite. He ran straight into controversy. Hollywood wanted him quiet, so he got louder. When the roles dried up, he didn't beg for scraps. He went to the stage, and not just any stage. He chose plays that most actors wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. Stories about prison abuse, sexual identity, violence, and power. Things Hollywood execs pretended didn't exist. Sal directed Fortune in Men's Eyes, a brutal prison drama laced with sexual violence and power dynamics. In the 1970s, in Los Angeles, with his name on it. You don't just do that if you're looking for a paycheck. You do that if you have something to prove. Sal wasn't trying to survive Hollywood, he was trying to burn it down and rebuild something more honest. And it worked, for a while. Critics started to notice, P.S. Your Cat is Dead, a dark comedy where Sal played a bisexual burglar who toys with his captor, turned heads in all the right and wrong ways. Audiences loved it. Traditional media called it risky. Hollywood execs called it a problem. Because now, Sal wasn't just out of their control. He was successful without them. And that terrified people, especially the ones who remembered what secrets he might know and what he might say next. February 12th, 1976. Sal Mineo was steps from finally reclaiming the spotlight that Hollywood had stolen from him. He wasn't on drugs, he wasn't spiraling, he wasn't out of work. He had just landed a powerful new role in a daring stage play, a raw, emotional part tailor-made for a comeback. That night, he left rehearsal in high spirits. This was his second chance. He parked outside his West Hollywood apartment, a quiet, familiar place where he should have been safe. He stepped out of his car, and seconds later, he was lying in an alleyway, bleeding out from a single vicious stab wound straight to the heart. No one took his wallet. No jewelry was missing. His keys, his cash, untouched. Whoever did this didn't want something from Sal. They wanted Sal gone. The neighborhood was shaken. Reporters showed up instantly. Hollywood issued cold, recycled condolences. But behind the scenes, people were whispering. Because the way he died, it wasn't messy, it wasn't random, it was clean, targeted, efficient. Police called it a robbery, but what kind of robber stabs someone in the heart and walks away without taking a dime? It didn't make sense. Unless the goal wasn't to rob him, it was to silence him. And when you look at what Sal was doing in his final months, the roles he was taking, the topics he was tackling, the rumors he might expose, you start to see why someone in power might have wanted him out of the picture permanently. The cops were desperate for a suspect. The press was demanding answers. And Sal's murder had gone from headline tragedy to a lingering embarrassment for the LAPD. Then, 2 years later, they got what they wanted. A 21-year-old pizza delivery guy from Michigan named Lionel Ray Williams was arrested for an unrelated robbery. During questioning, he casually told someone he'd once stabbed a famous actor. Cops jumped on it like a lifeline. He sort of looked like the guy one witness described leaving the scene. No motive, no connection to Sal, no stolen items, but they had someone. Williams was convicted, case closed, Hollywood moved on. But here's the part no one talks about, because this is where the story gets ugly. Williams didn't know Sal. Not socially, not professionally, there was no link. And yet he supposedly stabbed a total stranger in the heart with surgical precision and didn't take a single thing. Come on, this wasn't a random street mugging. It didn't fit the pattern. What it looked like was a hit, a clean, deliberate hit, disguised as street violence. And the deeper you dig, the more you start to see the cracks in the story. There were whispers even back then that Lionel Ray Williams might not have acted alone, that he'd been used, or worse, paid. And if that's true, then someone powerful was behind it. Someone who had the means to orchestrate a murder and the influence to bury the truth. Because let's be real, Hollywood doesn't need to pull the trigger. It just needs to make sure the right people look the other way. And in Sal Mineo's case, that's exactly what they did. You'd think the case was over. Killer caught, justice served, end of story, right? Wrong. Because nearly 5 decades later, something happened that shook the foundation of the official version. Old dusty boxes locked away in LAPD storage, forgotten files, court records, internal memos were suddenly unsealed. Most people thought they were just historical leftovers. They weren't. Inside were names, tips, timelines, witness statements, things that never made it into the courtroom, leads that were conveniently ignored, evidence that could have flipped the case upside down, like reports of multiple people seen near Sal's building that night, descriptions that didn't match Lionel Ray Williams, tips phoned in anonymously that were dismissed without follow-up. Even early notes from investigators questioning whether it was really a robbery at all. One memo, never shown to the jury, suggested Williams may have been manipulated, possibly paid, possibly used as a fall guy. And then the most damning piece, an off-the-record interview with a retired officer from the original task force who admitted there were people higher up who told us to stop digging, said it was handled, told us to let it go. Handled by who exactly? That's where it gets terrifying. Whispers started resurfacing that powerful insiders, with connections to organized crime, may have orchestrated the entire thing. Not just because Sal was famous, but because of what he knew. Rumors that Sal was preparing to expose closeted figures in Hollywood, that he'd heard things, seen things, maybe even been involved with people who had everything to lose if he ever opened his mouth. And when you look at the timing, Sal's career was rebuilding, his confidence was growing, his platform was coming back. That's when someone decided he had to be silenced, not later. Now, you think that's the worst part? Not even close. Stick around, the cover-up runs deeper than anyone ever reported. If this sounds like a Hollywood thriller, that's because it should have been, except it was real and no one went to prison, except a broke pizza guy with no connections. So the question is, how did this happen? How did so much evidence get ignored? How did so many voices go unheard? Simple. It happened in 1970s Los Angeles, a time when the LAPD was knee-deep in allegations of corruption, racism, mishandled celebrity cases, and most importantly, protecting the powerful. Sal Mineo was openly gay, at least in private, during a time when that alone could get you blacklisted, harassed, or worse. Let's be honest, to some of the men in charge of investigating his murder, Sal was disposable. He wasn't an A-list darling anymore. He wasn't part of the machine. And worse, he was outspoken, brave, and possibly dangerous to people whose secrets ran deep. So when a suspect popped up who sort of fit the description, they grabbed it and never looked back. They didn't follow the money, they didn't trace connections, they didn't ask why nothing was taken from the crime scene. They just wanted to shut the case and shut it fast, and they did. But closing a file isn't the same as uncovering the truth. And as the years passed, it became painfully clear justice wasn't done, it was buried. And what's worse, that might have been the plan all along. Sal Mineo was more than just a fallen star. He was a man ahead of his time. Bold, emotional, flawed, and fearless. And maybe that was the problem, because the system he was part of It only wanted him when he was silent. The real tragedy isn't that his killer might have gotten away, it's that someone made sure the truth never did.